For now, we move on to What's on Tap, which is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. Here's the matchups with the highest point totals going into Week 8, not Week 6, Matthew, Week 8. Sundays are easy to enjoy when they are full of football and the fridge is filled with beer. These are the games we're locking in on, starting with the Eagles traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Bengals are 3-point favorites in this game, but more importantly, the over-under is 48 in this one, Matthew. Do you play Chase Brown in this game?
Look, obviously, I think it depends on what your options are. You see it right there on your screen. With the Thursday night players removed, he comes in at running back 28 on my ranks. It's not a great matchup with Philadelphia. Eagles allow the 6th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs this season. But if you're looking for some positives around Chase Brown, over the past 4 weeks, he's averaging over 15 touches per game. He's had at least 12 in every single game. And he got 60% of the team's rushes last week, which is a season high. It's his third straight game with at least 50% of the Bengals team running back rushes. And so Zach Moss, who's now had back-to-back games with under 10 touches, this feels like Chase Brown is slowly overtaking this backfield. And so even in a bad matchup, given the expected shootout nature of this game, feels like Chase Brown, who's getting more involved in the passing game as well, feels like he's a viable flex this week.
Yeah, I agree. Sneaky thing about this game, and perhaps not everyone's been paying attention to this, but T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, there's not much difference between those two guys at the moment. Their DraftKings receiving prop is 4 yards apart.
Yes.
Chase is 75.5, T. Higgins 71.5. T. Higgins has been getting more first read targets. He's been just gobbling up targets in general. So T. Higgins is a guy I still think you can trade for because I think he's going to be a monster the rest of the way.
I remember on Fantasy Football pregame, one of our bar trivia questions was who has more receptions this game, T. Higgins or Jamar Chase? And I took Higgins thinking, Chase will have more yards, but Higgins will be more of the possession guy. And that actually ended up last week being the opposite. Chase got more receptions.
Yeah.
Higgins had more yards. So I'm with you. They're really a 1A, 1B.
Yep.
It's nice here for Higgins in the contract year.
Our next game, the Bills have the long trip to Seattle. They're still 3-point favorites against the Seahawks, but the over-under in this one is 46.5. Jay, is Amari Cooper now a top 20 play this week, as we think his snap count should go up compared to his debut at Buffalo?
Yeah, I think so. I think Amari Cooper, as you mentioned, the snap count against the Titans, that made sense. They didn't really need him in that game. Now, his receiving prop on DraftKings is only 53.5, but again, that is just calculated guesswork. I don't think anyone can say with certainty with Amari Cooper. I would say he's very high variance. If you need to shoot, if you went up against guys like Kyron Williams last night, Justin Jefferson, then Amari Cooper has a lot of upside, but also it could be a quiet game. We don't really know. Also monitoring the fitness of Tirico in there.
It's fair. I'm at wide receiver 17 over the last 4 weeks. Seahawks allow the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. He only ran 12 routes last week, but he got a target on 5 of them.
Yeah.
And so now with an extra week in the system, getting more experience with Josh Allen, I do think he's a top 20 play. Tyler Lockett comes in there at wide receiver 24. He's had 4 straight games with an end zone target, they're looking for him. No DK Metcalf here. In his 5 games where he's gotten at least 6 targets, Jay, including the game that you beat me with Tyler Lockett, he's averaging almost 12 fantasy points per game. And don't listen to Denny Carter's smearing of JSN. I like Jake Bobo as a deep sleeper, but I will say that I have JSN at wide receiver 21. I do think in a game where we expect a lot of scoring, JSN's a viable wide receiver 2 this week.
And Tyler Lockett makes the top 25 wide receivers, wide receiver 24 for
Correct.
you. So both him and JSN get a bump with Metcalf out. Our last game, Dallas is at San Francisco. The Niners are 4.5-point favorites in this game on Sunday Night Football. The over-under is 47. Matthew, let's crank up the difficulty on these questions here. Better desperation play, Jalen Tolbert or Ricky Pearsall?
Well, right now I would say Tolbert, because right now we don't know if Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel are going to play. Right now, these rankings with Deebo at 9 and Juwan Jennings at wide receiver 27 obviously assume both of them play. So if both of them play, it's hard to see an every down role for Ricky Pearsall, whereas Jalen Tolbert is really the only other wide receiver that gets significant run other than CeeDee Lamb, my guy 8. Having said that, if we know, so as we sit here today, I'll say Jalen Tolbert. But if Deebo Samuel and or Juwan Jennings can't go, and it looks like Deebo's at least going to play, but we don't know about Jennings as of this taping. If Jennings is out, than I think Ricky Pearsall. I mean, I will say Ricky Pearsall actually led the Niners in routes run last week. He had an 84% route participation. And over the last 4 weeks, the Cowboys allow the third most yards per game to opposing wide receivers. I also feel better about Brock Purdy at home against the Cowboys than Dak Prescott on the road at San Francisco.
That's the key. I think that's the thing that flips it to Pearsall is that, like, think about what these guys did last year in this matchup. Like, Dak has really struggled for whatever reason against the Niners. Brock Purdy had maybe the best game of his entire career against this Dallas defense. Also, Micah Parsons hasn't been practicing, doesn't look like he's going to play. So this Dallas defense, I just don't see how it's going to be super improved over the unit that last time we saw them, they were getting lit up for 47 points at home against the Lions.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.